My name is Chelsea Ward. I'm 29 years old, and for the longest time, I thought love was something you proved by staying, by fixing things, by trying harder, by becoming whatever the other person needed. Now I know better. But back then, I didn't. Ethan Cole walked into my life like sunlight. That's the only way I can describe it. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop party I almost didn't attend. I remember standing near the edge, holding a drink I wasn't really drinking, counting down the minutes until I could politely leave. And then he found me. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said, smiling like he already knew the answer. "I was just thinking that," I admitted. "Good," he said. "That makes two of us." That was Ethan. Effortless, charming, the kind of man who made everything feel lighter just by being there. He was a freelance designer, creative, spontaneous, a little chaotic. I was not. I worked in IT consulting. I liked schedules, predictability, quiet evenings, clean spreadsheets, and knowing exactly what my week looked like. And somehow it worked, at least in the beginning. "You ground me," he told me once, about 3 months in. We were lying on my couch, his head resting in my lap while I absent-mindedly played with his hair. "You make everything feel stable, real." I smiled, thinking it was one of the sweetest things anyone had ever said to me. I didn't realize then it wasn't entirely a compliment. The shift started slowly. So slowly, I almost missed it. "My ex, Vanessa," he said one night over dinner, casually swirling his drink. "She used to surprise me with these random weekend trips, like we'd just wake up and she'd say, 'Pack a bag, we're leaving.'" I laughed lightly. "That sounds stressful." "It was exciting," he corrected gently. "Spontaneous." I nodded, tucking that information away like it was something I needed to learn. Then came the comparisons. Not harsh, not obvious. Just enough to plant doubt. Vanessa was really big on grand gestures. Vanessa always said romance should feel effortless. "You're amazing, Chelsea. You just don't really think like that, do you?" I tried. God, I tried. I started sending him surprise lunches at work. Planned date nights at places he casually mentioned. Even booked a reservation at this ridiculously expensive rooftop restaurant he'd been hinting about for months. I remember sitting across from him that night, watching the city lights reflect in his eyes, waiting for that moment, that reaction that said, "This is enough." He smiled, but it didn't reach all the way. "This is nice," he said. Nice. Not amazing, not thoughtful, not romantic. Just nice. The comments became sharper after that. "Romance isn't about money, Chelsea. It's about feeling. Sometimes I wonder if you even want to try. You're sweet, but you don't really get it." And every time I felt myself shrinking, he'd soften. "I'm just helping you grow," he'd say, brushing my cheek. "I know you love me. You just show it differently." So I believed him. I believed that I was the problem. Meanwhile, I was holding his entire life together. Ethan's freelance career looked glamorous on the outside. Flexible hours, creative freedom. But behind the scenes, missed deadlines, unpaid invoices, forgotten client meetings. I was the one, making sure his rent was paid, organizing his projects, filing his taxes. There were nights I stayed up past midnight fixing things he didn't even realize were broken. And somehow, I was still the one who wasn't enough. 3 weeks ago, his laptop started glitching again. He handed it to me like he always did. "Can you just check my email real quick?" he asked, already halfway to the shower. "Yeah," I said. Routine. Normal. Nothing unusual. Until it was. I opened Chrome, and there it was. A second Instagram account. Not his main one, the polished, curated version of his life. This one was different. Private. Barely 50 followers. And full of things I had never seen before. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. Something in my chest tightened. That quiet instinct. The one you ignore because you don't want to be the kind of person who looks. But I looked. Photos. Ethan at restaurants we'd never been to. Ethan on hiking trails he never mentioned. Ethan. With her. Vanessa. Not old photos. Not memories. Recent. Last weekend. The same weekend he told me he was just hanging out with friends. My stomach dropped. But I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at the screen, as everything I thought I knew began to quietly unravel. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped blaming myself. I remembered the username, closed the laptop, and when Ethan walked out of the shower, smiling, carefree, completely unaware, I smiled back. Because something had shifted, and he had no idea. For the next few days, I moved through our apartment like a ghost in my own life. Ethan didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and simply didn't care enough to ask. He was too busy being Ethan, laughing at his phone, typing long messages with that private little smile, disappearing into the bathroom for quick calls, coming back out like nothing had happened. And I kept thinking, maybe I imagined it. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I clicked the wrong account. Maybe Vanessa wasn't Vanessa. Maybe, but deep down I already knew. Because when you've been with someone long enough, you learn the sound of the truth when it breaks. It doesn't crash like glass. It cracks like ice under your foot. Quiet, sudden, and irreversible. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I waited until his breathing slowed and his phone screen dimmed. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I couldn't. I just opened my own phone, typed in that secret Instagram username, and stared at the page until the letters blurred. His second account, the one meant for a life that didn't include me. There it was again, Vanessa. Long, dark hair, familiar smile, that effortless, nostalgic kind of beauty. Like a song you can't stop replaying even when you hate how it ends. And Ethan beside her, looking lighter than I'd seen him look in months. Like he wasn't carrying the weight of my boring love. I scrolled, photo after photo. A dimly lit bar across town. A restaurant with soft golden lights and candlelit tables. A blurry shot of their hands intertwined over a wine glass. A picture of her wearing his jacket. His jacket. The one I bought him last winter when he said he couldn't afford a decent coat. I felt something cold bloom inside my chest. Not just pain. Not just jealousy. Humiliation. Because suddenly, every time he looked at me like I was lacking, it made sense. He wasn't asking me to be romantic. He was asking me to compete. The captions were the worst part. Not because they were poetic, because they were aimed like knives. Some things aren't meant to last, but some are meant to return. Second chances feel like breathing again. Funny how you can leave a place, but it never leaves you. And the one that made my throat tighten so hard I thought I might choke finally feels like home again. Home. The word hit me like a slap. Because our apartment, my apartment technically, was full of my efforts. My stability, my financial planning, my quiet love. And here he was calling her home like I was just a stop along the way. A temporary shelter. The next morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen humming barefoot, hair still damp from the shower. He kissed my cheek like he had no sins. Morning, he said. I forced my voice steady. Morning. He poured coffee, leaned against the counter, and sighed like he was a man exhausted by disappointment. You know, he started, I was thinking about what you said last week. My heart thudded once. I hadn't said anything last week, but I nodded anyway. He gestured vaguely with his mug, about how you wanted to be better at surprises, spontaneity, all that. My nails dug into my palm beneath the table. I'm trying, I said quietly. Ethan smiled in that maddening way, soft, almost pitying. I know, you're just not a natural at it. There it was again. The subtle shove, the gentle reminder that I was always slightly behind the version of love he wanted. And then he said something that almost made me laugh. Sometimes I feel like I'm settling for safe. Safe. Like I was a bland meal. Like he wasn't living under my roof. Like my safe love wasn't the reason he had lights, Wi-Fi, and a phone plan. I swallowed it down. Swallowed everything. And smiled. Because I wasn't going to give him what he expected from me anymore. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to confront him yet. That afternoon, I sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store and stared at my steering wheel like it had answers. My hands were shaking. I kept hearing his voice, settling for safe. And my mind kept replying, then why are you still here? Because the truth was clear now. He wasn't staying because he loved me. He was staying because I was useful. That night, I did something I never thought I would do. I waited until Ethan was in the shower again, steam fogging the bathroom mirror, water running loud enough to drown out anything else. And I picked up his phone. It was unlocked. Of course it was. He never locked it around me, because he didn't think I was the type of woman who would check. He thought I was too trusting, too safe. My hands moved faster than my thoughts, like they were guided by something older than logic. Instinct, maybe. I found the message thread labeled V. Vanessa. The moment I opened it, my stomach sank so sharply I had to grip the edge of the counter. They weren't flirting. They weren't catching up. They were living a second relationship. Planning weekends, sharing photos, laughing about lies. And then, I found the messages that changed me, the ones that weren't even about Vanessa. They were about me. Chelsea's like a personal assistant who thinks she's a girlfriend. It's actually kind of convenient. She's predictable. She'll forgive anything as long as I act sad enough. She's already paying for everything anyway. And the one that made my vision go white at the edges. I'm going to drag her through the anniversary trip first. Might as well enjoy the beach on her dime before I end it. My mouth went dry. Anniversary trip. The beach. The same trip I'd been excited about. The one I was planning, budgeting for, making sure everything would be perfect. Because I thought it would finally make him happy. He didn't just betray me. He was going to use me until the very end. I took screenshots. So many screenshots my thumb started cramping. His words, His laughter. Their plans. I emailed them to myself. Then I went into his photos. Found pictures he'd sent her that I'd never seen. Found hotel confirmations. Found a photo of him and Vanessa at a beach. Not our beach, but the same one. The exact one we were supposed to go to next month. When Ethan came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, he found me sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. I snapped it shut like I'd been doing work. He smiled, completely relaxed. "What are you up to?" I met his eyes and felt something calm settle over me like armor. "Planning," I said. "For us." His face brightened. "Really?" I nodded. He stepped closer, kissed the top of my head. "That's what I like to hear, babe. Maybe there's hope for you after all." Hope for you. Like I was a project. A fixer-upper girlfriend. I almost said something right then. Almost ended it right there. But I didn't. Because in that moment, a thought slid into my mind so clearly it felt like a whisper from the universe. He wants grand gestures. He wants spontaneity. He wants a surprise. Fine. I would give him one. That night, when he fell asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My heartbeat wasn't frantic anymore. It was steady, cold, purposeful, because now I wasn't confused. I wasn't wondering if I was crazy. I had proof. I had truth. And I had a plan. The next morning, while Ethan slept in, I made my calls. First, his boss. Ethan did contract design work for a marketing firm. His steady client, the one I always reminded him not to disappoint. His boss, a man named Randall, answered on the second ring. "Hello?" "Hi, Randall," I said warmly. "This is Chelsea Ward." "Oh, hey, Chelsea, everything okay?" I smiled, even though my hands were trembling. "Everything's wonderful," I said. "I'm actually planning a surprise for Ethan. Something big." Randall chuckled. "Oh yeah? Like what?" I let my voice soften into something sweet. "I'm going to propose." There was a pause, then an explosion of excitement. "No way! That's incredible! Ethan's going to lose his mind." "Oh, he will," I murmured. "I just need him to have 4 days off. It's a romantic trip." Randall didn't hesitate. "Done. I'll clear his schedule. Just tell me when." Second, his family. His parents lived back in his hometown. I called his mother first. She answered with the kind of brightness that made me feel guilty for half a second. "Chelsea, sweetheart, what a nice surprise." "Yes. Surprises." I swallowed. "Hi, Mrs. Cole. I wanted to tell you something, but you can't tell Ethan." "Oh my God," she whispered. "Are you pregnant?" I almost laughed. "No," I said softly, "but I'm planning something big, something serious." I let the silence stretch just enough. "I'm thinking about proposing." Her gasp was so sharp it crackled through the phone. "Oh, honey, oh my gosh." She started crying. Actually crying. "I always hoped," she said, voice shaking. "I always hoped you two would end up together." Third, his sister. She squealed. Fourth, his father. He asked if I needed help picking out a ring. I said I already have one in mind, which was true, just not the kind of ring he meant. Then I booked the tickets. Same-day tickets. Maximum spontaneity. Not to Paris. Not to some romantic getaway. Not even to the beach. To his hometown. Right back into the arms of the people who raised him, so they could hear the truth from his mouth. And then I printed everything. Every screenshot. Every cruel message. Every plan. Every betrayal. I stacked the pages carefully like evidence in a courtroom. Because that's what this was. A trial. And Ethan was about to be sentenced. Last, I wrote a note. My handwriting didn't shake when I did it, because by then my heart had gone quiet. It read, "You said you wanted surprises. You said you wanted spontaneity. So here's your gift. A trip home and a chance to explain these messages to your family. Enjoy the grand gesture." I slid the note into a clean envelope, placed the printed screenshots behind it, added the boarding pass on top, and sealed it. That night, Ethan came home in a good mood. He leaned against the doorway watching me fold laundry. "You're acting different," he said. "Am I?" I asked. He smiled. "Yeah, like lighter, more confident." I looked up at him, meeting his gaze fully. "I guess I am." He walked over, kissed my forehead. "Maybe you finally realize what you have." I almost said, "Oh, I realized something." But instead I just smiled, because the surprise wasn't for him yet. Not fully. The next morning, I told him to pack a bag. "A bag?" he asked, eyes lighting up. "Wait, are we going somewhere?" "A mystery trip," I said. His grin widened. He stepped closer, almost giddy. "You're serious?" "Completely." He looked at me like I'd finally transformed into the woman he wanted. And I let him. Because the higher he climbed, the harder he was about to fall. Ethan had never looked at me the way he did that morning. Like I had finally become someone worth choosing. It was almost funny. He packed faster than I'd ever seen him move, throwing clothes into a bag, checking himself in the mirror twice, running his fingers through his hair like this trip might somehow redefine him. "Should I bring something nice?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder. I leaned casually against the doorframe, arms folded. Definitely. He smirked. Wow. Okay, I see what this is. What do you think this is? I asked lightly. His eyes sparkled with that familiar arrogance, the one I used to mistake for confidence. I think, he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice, you're finally about to do something big. I held his gaze. I am. The drive to the airport was filled with energy I hadn't felt from him in months. He played music, sang along, kept guessing destinations. Beach? He asked. No. Vegas? No. Okay, wait, wine country? That would be very you. I smiled faintly. You'll see. He reached over and squeezed my hand. I knew you had it in you, Chelsea. I didn't pull my hand away. But I didn't squeeze back either. At the airport, Ethan was practically glowing. He bounced slightly on his heels while we stood in line, glancing around like a kid waiting for a surprise birthday party. You're really not going to tell me? He asked again. I shook my head. Where's the fun in that? He laughed. God, I love this. I love this version of you. That sentence lingered in the air longer than it should have. This version of me, as if the woman who supported him, who stayed, who loved him quietly, wasn't enough to love. We reached the security line. That's when I stopped. Wait, I said. He turned, eyebrows raised. What? I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and handed it to him. And this? He asked, smiling. Part of the surprise? Open it. At first he looked amused, curious, even impressed. But as his fingers slid under the flap and pulled out the contents, everything changed. I watched it happen. The exact moment. The shift. His smile faltered. His brows pulled together. His eyes moved faster, scanning line after line, image after image. The color drained from his face so quickly it was almost surreal, like someone had pulled the warmth straight out of him. Chelsea, he said quietly. Not confused. Not playful. Afraid. He flipped through the pages faster now. Screenshots. Messages. His words. Every lie. Every insult. Every plan. Laid out in black and white. When he reached the boarding pass, his hand actually trembled. He stared at it like it might change if he blinked. Flight 447 to... His voice caught. To my hometown. I tilted my head slightly. You said you wanted something spontaneous. He looked up at me then. Really looked. And for the first time since I'd known him, he didn't look in control. What is this? He asked, voice tight. What does it look like? This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. People around us were starting to slow down. Subtly, curiously. The kind of attention you don't notice until it's already there. Ethan lowered his voice. You went through my phone? Yes. You had no right. I had every right, I cut in, calm and steady, especially after everything I found. His jaw tightened. This is insane, Chelsea. No, I said softly. What's insane is you calling me your personal assistant while I was paying your bills. That landed. Hard. A woman a few feet away glanced over. Then another. The silence around us thickened. You don't understand, Ethan started. Oh, I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I understand the secret Instagram, the weekend trips. Vanessa. At her name, his expression cracked. Just slightly, but enough. I understand, I continued, that while I was trying to be better for you, trying to be more romantic, more spontaneous, you were already somewhere else. Chelsea, please. No, I said, my voice still calm, almost gentle. You wanted grand gestures. I nodded toward the envelope in his hands. There it is. His breathing grew uneven. This is humiliating. I almost smiled. Is it? He stepped closer, lowering his voice further. Let's go home. We can talk about this privately. I shook my head. No, Ethan, you don't get private anymore. I gestured toward the boarding pass. Your parents are expecting you. His eyes widened. What? Dinner. Your mom spent all day cooking. Your sister cleared her schedule. His face went completely still. And your boss, I added. He thinks I'm about to propose to you. The silence that followed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. You told them what? He whispered. I told them exactly what you've been telling me you wanted, I said. Something big. Something meaningful. His voice broke slightly. You're ruining my life. That was the moment. The exact moment something inside me finally snapped into place. I stepped closer. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just firmly. No, I said quietly. You did that. He shook his head, panic creeping in. I'm not getting on that plane. That's fine, I said with a small shrug. But everyone thinks you are. He looked around then. Really looked. At the people watching. At the situation. At the reality closing in on him from every side. You're crazy, he muttered. Maybe, I said lightly, but at least I'm not a liar. His hands tightened around the papers. For a second, I thought he might rip them. Destroy the evidence. Erase the truth. He tried. But the moment he started tearing the boarding pass, a TSA agent stepped forward immediately. Sir, you can't do that here. Ethan froze. The attention snapped fully onto him now. Voices, eyes, authority. And in that chaos, I stepped back. He turned toward me, desperation flashing. Chelsea, wait. But I didn't. I walked away. I could hear him behind me, calling my name, raising his voice, trying to pull me back into something I had already left. But I didn't turn around. Not once. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something I didn't recognize at first. Peace. Not happiness. Not relief. Not even satisfaction. Just quiet. Like the storm inside me had finally burned itself out. Later that night, I sat alone at a hotel bar near the airport, a glass of something bitter in my hand. The kind of drink you sip slowly because you don't need anything stronger. My phone buzzed. Over and over and over. Ethan. His sister. Unknown numbers. Probably him again. I didn't answer. I just sat there, watching the condensation slide down the glass, thinking about everything that had led me here. All the moments I doubted myself. All the times I tried to be someone else. All the energy I poured into a man who was already halfway gone. And I realized something. Maybe I wasn't the spontaneous type. Maybe I wasn't the grand gesture kind of woman. But when it mattered, I could deliver a surprise no one would ever forget. I lifted my glass slightly. A quiet toast. To endings. To truth. To finally choosing myself. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was lacking anything at all. 3 days later, I was still in Portland. What was supposed to be a quick work trip had quietly turned into something else. Space. Distance. Silence. Healing. Or at least, the beginning of it. The first thing I did when I landed was turn off my notifications. Not completely. Just enough to breathe. Because my phone, it had become a storm. Ethan. Over and over. Calls. Messages. Voicemails. Then his sister. Then numbers I didn't recognize. Then his mother. I didn't respond to any of them. Not at first. I wasn't ready to hear anything that might make me question what I already knew. Instead, I filled my days. Long walks through unfamiliar streets. Coffee shops where no one knew my name. Hiking trails where the only sound was my own breathing. It was strange how quiet life could be when you weren't constantly managing someone else's chaos. But silence doesn't last forever. Eventually, the world catches up. It started with a call I almost didn't answer. Ethan's sister, Lily. Her name flashed across my screen for the third time that day. I stared at it, debated, then answered. What the hell is wrong with you? She snapped before I could even say hello. No greeting, no hesitation, just anger. I leaned back against the headboard of my hotel bed, closing my eyes. Hi, Lily. Don't hi me, Chelsea, she shot back. Do you have any idea what you just did to him? I let the silence stretch, then said calmly, yes. She scoffed. You humiliated him, in public. You blindsided him. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. I revealed him. There was a pause. Not agreement, but not interruption either. You could have handled this privately, she insisted. I opened my eyes, staring at the ceiling. And he could have cheated on me privately, I replied. That landed. I could hear it. In the way her breathing changed slightly. He made a mistake, she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. I sat up slowly. No, I said, my tone still even. He made a series of choices. Over months. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't believe you, she said finally. That one almost made me smile. You don't have to, I said, but your parents already do. That's when everything shifted. What? Lily asked. And just like that, the cracks began to show. I didn't have to explain much, because apparently, Ethan already had. Later that night, his mother called. Margaret. I hesitated before answering, then picked up. Chelsea, honey. Her voice broke before she even finished my name. And suddenly, I wasn't the villain in her story. I am so sorry, she said. The words came out rushed, heavy, real. We had no idea. None of this behavior. This isn't how we raised him. I sat very still, not expecting that, not prepared for it. I didn't call to upset you, she continued quickly. I needed you to know that we see it now. I swallowed. See what? The way he treated you. There it was. Validation. Not loud. Not dramatic. But steady. He told us everything, she said. Or at least, he tried to. I almost laughed at that. Tried? Margaret sighed. He came home with those papers. Your envelope. We thought, her voice caught slightly. We thought it was going to be a celebration. Of course they did. That was the story I gave them. The version of events Ethan wanted. But then, she continued, he couldn't even look at us while explaining. I could picture it. Ethan shifting under pressure, avoiding eye contact, trying to control the narrative. And then I read the messages, she said quietly. Silence filled the line. Heavy. Unavoidable. I read them out loud, she added. That made my breath hitch. in front of his father, his sister, everyone who was there. I closed my eyes, not out of guilt, but because I could feel it. That moment, that exposure, that truth finally spoken where it couldn't be twisted. He called you a personal assistant, she said, her voice tightening. Said he was using you for stability. Hearing it out loud from someone else felt different, sharper, more real. I'm sorry, she repeated. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. Thank you for telling me. There's more, she said. Of course there was. He tried to blame you at first, Margaret continued. Said you were controlling, that you invaded his privacy. I let out a quiet breath. That sounds like him. But the timestamps didn't lie, she said firmly. The messages didn't lie. No, they didn't. And Vanessa? I asked softly. There was a pause, then a small, almost bitter laugh. She's gone. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, Margaret said, her tone cooling. The moment things became public, she stopped answering his calls. Of course she did. He's been trying to reach her nonstop, she added, but she won't respond. I leaned back, staring at the wall. Not surprised. Not even satisfied. Just aware. Because that's the thing about people like Vanessa. They love secrets. They love stolen moments. But the second reality shows up, they disappear. And Ethan? I asked. Margaret exhaled slowly. He's not doing well. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. He's staying here for now, she said. Your apartment situation. I've handled it, I interrupted gently. She hesitated, then said something that stayed with me. You deserve better than what he gave you, Chelsea. Simple. Direct. True. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, silence pressing in around me. Because here's the part no one really talks about. When the truth comes out, when everything is exposed, when the person who hurt you is finally seen for who they are, you expect to feel victorious. But I didn't. I felt empty. Not broken. Not shattered. Just like something had been removed. And maybe that's what healing actually starts as. Not a dramatic rebuild, but a quiet absence of pain. The next day, more pieces fell into place. Mutual friends started reaching out. And the story? It wasn't going the way I expected. Sarah, the friend who introduced us, called me. I didn't know, she said immediately. Chelsea, I swear, I didn't know. I believe you, I said. And I did. Because apparently, Ethan hadn't just been lying to me. He'd been lying to everyone. Different stories, different excuses, different versions of reality depending on who he was talking to. To Sarah, he said he was visiting family. To another friend, he was traveling for work. To someone else, he was taking mental health weekends. All while, he was with Vanessa. They're furious, Sarah said. Who? Everyone, she replied. Because he made us part of it, without us knowing. That part hit differently, because betrayal doesn't just damage one relationship. It ripples. It spreads. It exposes. Even his job wasn't untouched. Randall, his boss, found out. Small industry. Word travels fast. The proposal story I told? It didn't stay a story for long. And now, Randall was questioning whether Ethan could be trusted with bigger projects. Funny how quickly things fall apart when the truth shows up. That night, I stood by the window of my hotel room, looking out at the city lights. Ethan had lost Vanessa, lost credibility, lost control of the narrative. And for the first time, he was facing consequences he couldn't charm his way out of. But the strangest part, I didn't feel like I'd won. I just felt like I'd finally stepped out of something that was never real to begin with. And maybe that was enough. I came home on a Tuesday afternoon. No dramatic music, no storm waiting at the door, just quiet. For a moment, I stood outside my apartment with my suitcase in hand, staring at the door like it might feel different. Like I might feel different. But when I stepped inside, everything was normal. Too normal. And then I noticed his things were gone. Not just packed, erased. The shoes by the door, gone. The jacket on the chair, gone. The coffee machine he insisted we needed, gone. It was like Ethan had never lived there at all. I walked slowly into the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. A note, sitting neatly on the counter. I stared at it for a few seconds before picking it up, half expecting some long explanation, some emotional confession, some attempt to rewrite what happened. But it was short, too short. I took what was mine. The spare key is on your dresser. I'm sorry for everything. We need to talk. Please call me. I read it twice, then set it back down. No anger, no tears, just relief. Because I'd been dreading this part. The awkward conversation, the dividing of things, the lingering presence of someone who no longer belonged. And somehow, he'd already removed himself. I should have known it wouldn't end there. That night, around 9 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Not a soft one, not polite, persistent. I froze, then slowly walked toward the door. Looked through the peephole. Ethan, standing there, holding a grocery bag. I stepped back immediately. Didn't open it. Didn't speak. The knocking continued. Louder this time. More desperate. Chelsea, I know you're in there. I stayed silent. I brought dinner, he added quickly. From that Thai place you like. Of course he did, because now he remembered what I liked. Can we just talk, he said, like adults? Still, I said nothing. Minutes passed. Then, I broke up with Vanessa. I closed my eyes. It's over, he continued quickly. I chose you. There it was. Not an apology. Not accountability. A transaction. I almost laughed. Because even now, he thought this was a choice. That he still had options. That I was one of them. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I exhaled slowly. Thought maybe that was it. But it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Chelsea, is everything okay? There's a young man sleeping in a car outside. I was worried. My stomach dropped. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and there he was, Ethan, curled awkwardly in the driver's seat of his car, waiting for me. At 7 a.m., the knocking started again. This time, I answered, but I didn't open the door. Chelsea, he said, relief flooding his voice. Thank God. Can we please talk? No, I said. Silence. I made a mistake, he said quickly. A huge mistake. But people make mistakes. That doesn't mean we throw everything away. I leaned my forehead lightly against the door. You didn't make a mistake, I said calmly. You made choices. I was confused, he insisted. I was scared of how serious things were getting. I almost smiled. So you cheated? I panicked, he said. But going through all this, it made me realize something. Here it comes. You're the one I want. There it was. Not because he loved me. Because he lost her. I let the silence sit between us. Chelsea, he said softly, we can fix this. I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. No, I said. You're not thinking clearly, he pushed. You're hurt. You're twisting things. There it was. The familiar shift. From accountability to manipulation. I saw the messages, Ethan, I said. Silence. You called me your personal assistant. Another silence. You said you were using me. His voice came back softer. Careful. I didn't mean those things. I let out a quiet breath. You wrote them, I said, repeatedly. I was angry, he said quickly. I was venting. To the woman you were cheating on me with. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Another pause. Longer this time. You're overreacting, he said finally. I laughed. Actually laughed. And something about that sound must have unsettled him. Chelsea, you were planning to leave me after our anniversary trip, I continued. After I paid for everything. Silence. That's not love, I said. That's strategy. His tone changed again. Sharpened. My parents think we can work through this, he said. They want to talk to you. That made me still, because I knew that wasn't true. When did you talk to them? I asked. This morning, he said. They said relationships take work, that we shouldn't give up. I pulled out my phone, typed one message. To Margaret. Did you say that? Her reply came almost instantly. No, he was told to give you space. Don't let him twist this. I closed my eyes, exhaled, then read it out loud. Through the door. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Around noon, he was still there. I needed groceries. Needed air. Needed to move. So I left. When I came back 2 hours later, he was sitting on my doorstep with a picnic. Actual food laid out like some kind of desperate apology scene from a movie. I thought you might be hungry, he said. I stared at him. Really stared. And for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw someone who didn't understand what he'd done. Ethan, I said quietly, this is harassment. This is me trying, he shot back. Our relationship ended the moment you chose someone else, I said. I didn't choose her, he insisted. I was confused. No, I said, you were comfortable. That hit him. Hard. I don't want to be your safe option, I continued. I don't want to be the person you come back to when things fall apart. His eyes filled slightly. I love you, he said. And maybe part of him believed that. But love without respect? It's just attachment. If you're not gone in an hour, I said calmly, I'm calling the police. His expression shifted, from pleading to anger. You're going to regret this, he snapped. There it was, the final card. You won't find someone who loves you like I do. I opened the door, fully this time, and looked him in the eyes. You're right, I said. He blinked. I won't. Hope flickered across his face. Then I finished. I'll find someone who loves me better. Silence. Someone who doesn't cheat, I continued. Someone who doesn't use me. Someone who chooses me the first time. His face fell. I hope she was worth it, I said softly. Then I stepped back. Now leave. And this time, he did. I locked the door behind him. And for the first time since everything began, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just certainty. 3 weeks later, the silence stayed. Not the heavy kind. Not the kind that presses on your chest and makes you feel like something is missing. This one was different. It felt earned. Ethan stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped showing up uninvited like he still had a place in my life. At first, I kept expecting it. That knock. That message from an unknown number. That last attempt to pull me back into something I had already walked away from. But it never came. And slowly, I stopped looking over my shoulder. Margaret texted me once. Just once. He's staying with us for now, trying to figure things out. I'm sorry again, Chelsea. I read it, appreciated it, but didn't respond. Not out of anger. Just closure. Because some doors don't need to be reopened. Lily reached out too. A very different tone this time. I owe you an apology. I didn't know the full story. I do now. That one, I answered. Thank you. Nothing more, nothing less. Because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it just means letting things end without carrying bitterness forward. The friend group? It sorted itself out faster than I expected. There were 3 kinds of people. The ones who defended Ethan. Usually the ones who didn't know the whole story. The ones who stayed neutral. Didn't want to get involved. Didn't want to pick sides. And then, the ones who saw everything. Who knew how much I had been giving. How much I had been holding together. How much I had been quietly losing myself trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I wasn't. Those people stayed. Sarah was one of them. She called it a friendship audit. Sat everyone down. Laid everything out. The lies. The different stories. The messages. The manipulation. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Ethan had been using. He had borrowed money from one friend and never paid it back. Canceled plans with another while secretly seeing Vanessa. Asked multiple people to cover for him, without them realizing what they were covering. And just like that, the image he had carefully built started to fall apart. Because the truth doesn't just expose one lie, it exposes all of them. His career took a hit too. Not immediately, but quietly. Randall stopped offering him bigger projects. Stopped trusting him with deadlines that actually mattered. Because reputation, it doesn't just live in your personal life. It follows you. Meanwhile, my life got lighter, not overnight. Not magically, but steadily. Work felt easier, not because it changed, but because I wasn't carrying someone else's responsibilities on top of my own. My boss noticed, offered me a promotion, senior consultant, a raise, more autonomy. I accepted, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like something I earned just for being myself, not for fixing someone else, not for proving anything, just for showing up as I am. Outside of work, things shifted too. I started saying yes more, to invitations, to new experiences, to things I used to decline because I was too busy managing Ethan's chaos. I joined a hiking group, not because I was trying to reinvent myself, but because I realized I actually liked it. The quiet, the movement, the feeling of going somewhere without needing permission. I started playing tennis again, something I hadn't done in years. Met people who didn't expect me to be anything other than present. And slowly, I started to recognize myself again. Not the version of me Ethan wanted, the real one, the one who was already enough. People keep asking me if I regret it, the relationship, the time, the effort. And the answer is no, because regret means wishing something never happened. And I can't say that. I learned too much about boundaries, about self-worth, about the difference between love and being needed, because I wasn't loved the way I deserved. I was relied on. And those are not the same thing. If anything, I regret how long it took me to see that. But even that, I've made peace with. Because walking away, that was the hardest part. And I did it. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but completely. And sometimes, that's enough. Now, when I come home, the apartment feels different. Not empty, just mine. No tension, no second guessing, no quiet voice in this back of my head asking if I'm doing enough. Just space and peace and the quiet understanding that whatever comes next will meet me where I stand, not where I have to shrink myself to be. That's it. No dramatic ending. No last-minute twist. Just a woman who finally chose herself and didn't look back.